Hello and welcome to Ask an Author with Julia Kelly. I'm really, really thrilled because this week we have a wonderful special guest joining us from the road, actually. Would you like to
Yeah,
introduce yourself?
I would love to. I'm Kristy Woodson Harvey, and I'm sorry for my bad lighting. I am in a hotel room. I'm on the road from the Christmas and Peachtree Bluff tour. So this is a little real author life here. It's dark and pouring rain outside. And anyway, but gosh, Julia, I'm so glad to see you, and I'm so appreciative that you're having me here today. And I'm so excited to talk a little bit about Christmas and Peachtree Bluff.
I'm really excited as well. I was telling you a little bit before we started live, because we was chat beforehand, that this is a world that I've known for a long time. Obviously, not as long as you, but I remember reading your first book right as it came out, and just
Oh,
absolutely loving the sisters and the town and all of the community and everything that comes into this world. So I was just so happy to see that we were getting another taste of this because I had thought the story was closed
yeah,
with the
me
third book.
too. Me too.
Well, sometimes you get good gifts at Christmas. So perhaps you could tell us a little bit about the book, and then also about this existing world that we come back to.
Oh, yes. Okay. No, it is funny because I really, I planned this series. It was going to be three books and that was going to be it. And I was really pretty dead set on that. And so after the series was over, of course I got a lot of notes from people saying, please write more, we love Peachtree Bluff, or we love the women in the series. And I would always say things like, oh, maybe we'll go back to Peachtree one day. But in the back of my mind, like I didn't mean it. I was like, oh,
Right.
I'm done, and it wasn't like, oh, I'm done. I love these women and I love this town, like maybe more than like anything I'll ever write again. I really do love them. And so it wasn't like I didn't love them. It was just, you always want to end when people are happy. You never want to like be the person that does that one more book and then people are like, well, that was a letdown.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So feels like Falling came out in 2020, kind of in the middle of the craziness of the shutdown, right at the beginning of that. And then Under the Southern Sky came out April 2021. And so that was like slated and ready to go. But of course, as we weren't on the road. We weren't touring. We weren't doing a lot of things that as authors we're sometimes doing a lot of, and promoting those new books so much. So I wrote a lot, and I have a book called The Wedding Veil coming out in 2022 that I think maybe we'll talk about in a minute.
Very
Um,
excited to talk to you about that as well.
Thank you. But I was like really early for my deadline, which is rare. I was really excited about that. And I just had all these ideas kind of brewing, and I kept thinking, well, gosh, if I can't have the Christmas I wish I was having, maybe I could write the Christmas that I wish I was having. And so that was like a little bit of a spark of an idea of like, well, I could write a Christmas book. And I mean, it was an obvious choice. If I'm going to
Mhm.
write a Christmas book, it's going to be a Peachtree Bluff book. And so I'd also had this other idea kind of brewing for a while about a family that gets stuck on an island during a really big storm. And I also, like, as I was, as it would be sort of like playing out in my mind, I knew that was a Peachtree Bluff book too. I
Mhm.
just knew it was, but I kept thinking, I'm going to have to modify this because I'm not writing any more Peachtree Bluff. But so when I got the idea for the Christmas book, I thought, well, what if I took a late season hurricane and my Christmas story and I put them together and I made it Christmas in Peachtree Bluff? And so in this story, you have the holiday season coming for Peachtree Bluff, as well
Mhm.
as the storm of the century. And so Sloan, Emerson, and Caroline, who are the three grown sisters in this story, all come back home to Peachtree Bluff to visit their mother Ansley with their families in tow. And while they're there, Caroline's oldest daughter, Vivi's behavior has just been not good. She's a 15-year-old
Yeah.
girl. She's a teenager. She's going through some things beyond the normal 15-year-old stuff. But Caroline is like, Mom, if you could just keep her till Christmas. Online school is a thing. It's just a couple weeks. She loves you. She loves Peachtree. Like maybe she'll kind of snap out of this if she has a little bit of distance from me and she isn't so mad at me. And so Anne's leaving the doting grandmother that she is, says, yes, of course, I'm happy to do that. And then Vivi's bad behavior gets herself and her grandmother and her grandparents stuck in Peachtree Bluff during the storm of the century. And it is up to Caroline, Sloan, and Emerson to not only come to the rescue of their family, but also to put Peachtree Bluff back together again just in time for
I
Christmas.
think Caroline, just on personality alone, probably could put a town back together after a hurricane. But one of the things that I love seeing is I think these books are so wonderful when you see the sisters really sort of come together from disparate parts of their life, whether they're, across geographies or whether they're having an argument, because you're realistic about the fact that sisters don't always, bump along happily together. We do get into arguments, we do get into tiffs. But I thought one of the things that's really strong about this series is how this generation of women, and then of course the older and younger generations, also come together as well. And it's really a story about family and community more than anything else, isn't it?
It really is. Thank you. You summed that up so well. I should have let you talk about it. But it is. It absolutely is. And I think that's what I remember when I set out to write this story, or to write this series. Actually, I remember saying to my editor, I want to write a town that people remember, like whether they remember the story, whether they remember the characters. I want them to remember this town and the way that it made them feel. And I think there was something really to that, because when the pandemic hit and when people were kind of alone in their houses and craving this sense of community, I really got this uptick in people asking for more Peachtree Bluff. And that was really kind of the straw that broke the camel's back for me. I thought, I'm getting just every single day messages from people, several years after the series was over, asking for more Peachtree Bluff. And I thought, give the people what they want, No, I'm just kidding. But I was like, I want to go back to Peachtree Bluff. I feel like other people, because I think that's the fear of writing too much in a series, is do people want to spend this much time on a series? So once I felt like people really did want to go back, I thought, why not? Let's do it.
Well, and I think it sounds like you had the story that you wanted to tell also. You weren't trying to sort of tack story onto something and keep it going. Almost like, when you sit and you watch a TV show and you think, it would have been really great if they got out after season 5.
Last season. Yes.
Yeah, no, exactly.
I did not want that. And so I really thought about this before I sat down to write it. I thought, do each of these women have a personal drama going on in their life that I can talk about? And, I thought the addition of Vivi as a main character, as a protagonist, and getting to hear her voice was something that gave the story a little bit more, a little bit of a different dimension. So people people had something new, to look forward to. But I actually didn't really know that I was going to write from all 5 of these women's viewpoints until I kind of dove in. So that was sort of a surprise and was really fun. It was fun to write a 15-year-old.
Yeah, I imagine that's a little different than what you've been writing before.
Yeah, for sure.
Were there challenges in particular with making sure that she sounded different and sort of thought and spoke differently than the sisters and their mother?
So I thought there would be. Yes, but I felt like when I sat down to write her voice was so in my head. And I hope that comes off on the page. You never know. But I really felt like her voice was just kind of in there, and she sounded a little bit different. But I tried, I think you hit on something there, because it's hard to kind of balance that line of making her sound 15, but not using a bunch of slang or things that are not pleasant to read, so I wanted to make her sound 15, but not use any language that 5 years from now, people would be like, what does that word mean? Because no one says that anymore.
Absolutely.
So there was a little bit of a line there to walk. And fortunately, so I have a 10-year-old son. And so a lot of his friends' older siblings are kind of around that age. And so the only thing that I really kind of deviated on, they're all so into Snapchat, but the language around that, when I was trying to form these stories that she had going on with her friends, it was just complex. And I was like, I'm not sure that my readers are going to really know what this means. So I just sort of stuck with texting and Instagram and things that I was like, I feel like my audience will be really familiar with this. So.
Well, and technology is such a funny thing, right? Because I don't think you can write this book and ignore that everybody has cell phones and smartphones in particular. Right. But I also don't think that you can write this book and be so specific to the time and moment, because then you worry that it's going to feel irrelevant to somebody, even by the time you get to publication, after you've finished working on it.
It's so true. It's so true. So anyway, but yeah, she was really fun to write. And I feel like it kind of worked a little bit of a different part of my writer muscle to get to write her. So it was good.
So I'm curious about the world of Peachtree Bluff also. Again, I've spent some time in this world. You've spent even more time than I have. And I know that you've credited your town, your hometown, with the inspiration for the book. How did you go about creating the world when you started this series?
Well, actually, the initial idea for this series, I live in a little town in coastal North Carolina called Beaufort, North Carolina, and it's really small, population 3,000. But it's sort of a part of a larger kind of coastal community around it. But it is a really small little town, and it's pre-revolutionary. It's one of the oldest towns, and talking to someone across the pond where 1700s is very new, but
I understand.
For us, it's pretty old, and so a lot of the houses on my street, were built in the 1700s, and it's just a place with like a lot of history, and it has a really cool feel. It brings in people off of sailboats from all over the world, and there's this very eclectic mix of like artists and just really interesting people that live there and like just have kind of made this place home. And I really wanted to write about this town where, when you walk down the street, you talk to every single person that you stop and see, and where, like a big day is like watching all like someone famous's boat come in from this harbor. And it just has this feeling to it that I really wanted to capture. And so I wanted to set it in Beaufort. And my editor at the time said, you've written about North Carolina, you've written about these real places. What if you wrote about another place in the South? Like, what if you wrote about, Georgia or somewhere? And at first I was like gassed. I was like, Georgia?
I can't possibly.
How could I write about coastal Georgia? I mean, I don't know anything about coastal Georgia. I don't know. I mean, I'd been there before, but so I kind of was like, okay. And then I realized really quickly, like, wow, making up a fake place is great. You don't have to, things don't have to perfectly make sense. And, but it really is, I mean, it's very much Beaufort, like to the point that, I mean, like most of the secondary characters in the book, like Hippie Hal and Coffee Kyle and like all these people, they're like based on people that actually live in town, which is kind of fun.
I wonder about that.
Yeah. So like a lot of the secondary characters, like the dock master and, all these people that are kind of a part of the fabric of this community. And then almost every single place that you see in the story is actually something that's really like in Southern Side of Paradise Pub is an important thing. It's like the dividing line between the old and new parts of town. And in our town, it's actually called Backstreet Pub. It's the oldest building in Beaufort, which is pretty cool. And so it's a real place, but, and like, we have a Beaufort grocery company and it's Peach Street Grocery Company. It's very thinly veiled. But what's really fun about that is that it's like, actually, I was just, we're doing this again. We're doing a Peachtree Bluff town takeover in Beaufort where people can come and they do these bus tours around town. And I show them everything that was in the books.
Oh, that's cool.
We do like luncheons and dinners. And yeah, so I'm really excited about that. We did it after the Southern Side of Paradise, and it just, I was like, are people going to come? Like, are people going to want to do this? Is this going to work? Like, I'm not really sure. And it was a really big success. And so we were like, okay, well, we'll do it again. But people would ask, when's the next Peachtree Bluff Town takeover? Like, it was going to be this annual event. And I was like, no, it's just for the book. So we're doing it again in December as a part of the town Christmas candlelight tour. And I'm so excited to kind of get to go back, and to Peachtree Bluff and sort of turn the town into Peachtree Bluff again. And, but I think more than anything, just like that feeling of living in a place like Beaufort was what I wanted to capture. And I hope that comes through. In fact, it really influenced me because we ended up moving there.
There you go.
It's like, I think I loved it so much that it really, really changed my life in some ways.
Oh, I love it. Well, we have some love for Beaufort. Susie says it's very charming and she enjoyed visiting there. And then we actually have a question about that takeover. Anne wants to know, will part of the town takeover be virtual? So can people join along, or is it an in-person thing?
That is such a good idea. You know what? Maybe we will do that because they just told me that a couple of the events have sold out. And they were like, I don't know, should we add more events? And I think that's the solution, is we'll make one of those. We could do a virtual bus tour through town. That would be super fun.
Cool. Very
cool. Thank you for that suggestion. I will work on that.
We're making plans as we're on the video. So
I love it.
You guys are seeing it live.
Take notes. We're seeing it happen live. Julia is helping me out here.
We're doing planning as we talk. Great. I would love to talk to you also about how your town of Beaufort influenced the Christmas side of this book, because of course there's this wonderful world that we are revisiting. And one of the things I really enjoy about small towns and books about small towns is there's always something that feels very unique to that town. And I think this one had a few ones, and I have a favorite, which I'll share with you afterwards. But
good. Okay.
But I would love to hear about the sort of Christmas traditions that you created for this book.
I love that. Okay, well, just like a little fun fact for people who read the book, every Christmas tradition that's in the story is something that we actually do in Beaufort, except the Starlight Starbright Festival. but which I won't tell you all about, but when you read it, you'll know. But everybody, I loved it so much that I had some people that read it early, and we were like, "Can we pull this off? Like, could we do a Starbright Festival?" As a part of the Candlelight Tour this year. But then, I don't know, it just seemed kind of overwhelming. It seemed like a lot of logistics. Like, I think it's something that, once you've done it for 5 years, it would be like clockwork and everyone would know what to do. But I think it'll be a lot of work to start it. So
yes.
I think we're going to put
information
that on
campaign.
Burner. Yes, but so, oh gosh, it's so fun. So it sort of starts with the tree lighting in the square. So everybody kind of gathers, and there's a big Christmas tree on the town dock, and they do this sweet little tree lighting there. And I absolutely love that. And then we have a big parade like everyone else does. And then a flotilla, which is a boat parade that comes by on the water, which is so cute. And there's a little hut downtown that Santa, he doesn't really live there, but he's there like all day during the holiday season, and you can go by and you can sit on Santa's lap, and it's all decorated. Like the whole square is all decorated, and you can get hot chocolate, and all the stores just go like way over the top of their Christmas decorations. And it's just really fun. And there's a claws crawl. So you go from like restaurant to bar to like everywhere, and everybody has like these special things that you do. And it's just kind of a fun time. Like it's mostly local people, and everybody just kind of gets together and celebrates the holidays. So a lot of those things, we weren't able to do last year, and I was really missing those. And so it was kind of fun to be able to write them and sort of like capture some of that joy and magic of the holiday season.
Well, I think it just sounds like such a fun idea. And again, for a book that is so focused around community and family, it's just wonderful getting to see all that come together. It's a great chance to see your favorite side characters as well, your secondary characters.
Thank you.
I'm really curious about your main characters, and I'm sure you've been asked this a ton of times, but do you have a favorite Murphy sister?
So I love them all for different reasons, which is not a great answer, but Caroline was the first one I wrote, which, there's something about her that I really like. I am not like Caroline in a lot of ways. I am very like a people pleaser. Like I've been telling this story, and some people do ask me this. I mean, I've told this story a couple of times on my tour, but like there's someone that, has like in town that'll like call me the wrong name or whatever. And I would never say like, that's not my name. I just never want anyone to feel like uncomfortable, and people are like, well, that's insane, but Caroline is like, she will just say anything to anyone, anytime. Like she has no filter. Anything that she thinks in her head comes out of her mouth. And I am definitely not like that. So there was something about writing her that was like, this is great. Like, can you imagine like just being like this person? But I think we all know someone like that too, who like just says whatever they think. And sometimes I think they come from a good place, as I think eventually we realize that Caroline does. And she's also, she softens as the series goes. She's in a bad place in her life, like when this story opens. And I think you act ways with your sisters and your mother that you might not necessarily act to the outside world. So I think we see a lot of her harshness come through, with her family that she doesn't necessarily have otherwise. But there are also really good parts to that type of personality, because she's super organized. She gets everyone motivated, like everything's done. I mean, in this book, they're in the middle of a hurricane, and Caroline's like, oh, by the way, our Christmas card photos are next week. Yes. And like, are you crazy? Like, what do you mean our Christmas card photo? Like, our life is falling apart. And she's like, well, I mean, do you want to just not document this year of our life? Is that what y'all want to do? I mean, that's fine with me, But she's just so uber organized. And I think, there are people like that you're just like, oh my gosh, like, how are you even thinking about this right now? But she is, she is on it. So yes. I loved writing her. Sloane, I actually thought was going to be my least favorite character to write. And when I got into her book, or I don't know that least favorite is not the right word. I didn't know her as well. I didn't feel like I understood her interior life as well when I started the books. And then when I started writing her, I was like, Sloane has got some like dishy inside like stuff going on. So she ended up kind of being one of my favorites. And then Emerson is just, I know. And then Emerson, she's the baby. And I loved writing her because in Slightly South of Simple and The Secret to Southern Charm, you see Emerson through the eyes of her older sisters. And so you have this impression of her that she's this baby and she's so dramatic and everyone has to take care of her. And then when you get to her story, you're like, well, that's not really who Emerson is. It's just who her sisters think she is. And so that was kind of an interesting dynamic too. So I love them all for different reasons. And then of course, Ansley's the glue that holds them all together. So
She is. She's
yeah.
wonderful. And her sense of design, and which I know, of course, is something that's very, very fitting with your life. And but she just sounds so fabulous. She really does.
She's a good mother for sure. So
Absolutely.
I like that relationship that they have too, and how, how close she is. And I hadn't really written like a mother-daughter relationship like that before when I wrote her. So I really enjoyed doing that.
When you were setting out to write this book, had you had an idea of little bits and pieces that you wanted to wrap up if you ever got the chance to write a fourth book, if you got a chance to revisit this world? Were there things that you kind of left a little less polished for yourself intentionally?
I did. And I did do it on purpose. Even in that third book, I was like, I think I'm finished, but I'm not really sure. I definitely left a big question mark about James and Caroline. Like I said, it was almost like a choose your own adventure story. Like, does she stay with him? Does she not stay with him? At the end of book 3, I sort of leave it to where maybe she does and maybe she doesn't, but you aren't exactly sure what's going to happen. And so that's definitely like a major plot point in Christmas and Peachtree is, what ultimately happens with Caroline and James. But I also think with Emerson and Kyle, like there's a big kind of almost like bomb dropped at the end of the story that sort of closes up, but also, again, you don't really know what's going to happen. Like you can't really, it's a nice, comfortable ending, but it's not like a tied up bow for them necessarily of like what the next steps are. So, I think, and even, Ansley and Jack, you see them kind of at this wonderful place in their relationship, but in reality, like he has not had experience with life with 3 grown daughters and their families and all these grandchildren. And, he has this idea of what this woman that he's loved his whole life is like, but I don't think he really understands what it's like to be a part of a family because he's never been a part of a family before. So, since his childhood. So, so there were a lot of things like that I was really kind of interested in seeing firsthand, like what will that be like, and what's going to happen. So yeah, I left a lot of little strings, and it was really, really easy when I got into the story to have everybody sort of everybody's loose ends dangling that needed to be tied up. Even Sloan and Adam, like they're still living in Ansley's house. Like they're grown adults, you can't,
it's not a permanent solution.
That's not a permanent solution. So like, what's their next move? And does he go back to the military and, all of those things. So.
Yeah. I think it's so interesting, the idea of leaving that openness and building some trapdoors for yourself as an author, of course, and then throwing a little bit of conflict in for each of these characters and a little bit of drama in, because of course that's always going to be healthy for a story as well. Did the conflicts come naturally? I know you said some of them had loose ends, but then we have bigger things added on to that as well.
Yeah, I think so. I really spent some time thinking like, okay, it's been 3 years. Where would these people be? What would they be thinking about? And what would their conflicts be right now? And, I think also just like having the backdrop, having the storm, having that big external conflict was something that right away sort of unified the family and gave them something to really focus on and like be a part of. So that was a good thing, like right off the bat, to be able to kind of have this centered around the storm and this external conflict that I knew pretty well. And it's sort of funny because like Ansley is in complete denial about this hurricane coming, and
complete denial.
Like, she's like, we don't have late season hurricanes here. The storm is not coming. And her girls are like, Mom, like get a grip. It's a hurricane. We've been through a million of them. Like just get off the island. And like, why are you being like this? But she's just in denial that like anything can burst her perfect like holiday season bubble in Peachtree Bluff. And, and everyone laughs. And the hurricane's name is Pearl, which I thought was kind of funny. Like this little Southern lady. And Caroline's like, of all the pearls, I've never met a pearl that I didn't like until now. There was I had a lot of fun with Pearl, but so being able to kind of, and having Vivi's like bad behavior, and I think that really sends ripples throughout the family because everyone's kind of trying to help, and she has a very special relationship with her Aunt Emerson, and she has a very special relationship with her grandmother, and so how does it look for them to kind of step in and try to help her? And there were definitely a lot of new conflicts, but it's funny how when you get back into a series, you get more ideas. And so as I was finishing Christmas in Peachtree Bluff, I was like, oh, like, I know what the next book would be, like I had another story, and I don't know that I'll ever write it, but I was like, this is kind of good. Like, it's a big one.
So I'm keeping an eye on the comments on the iPad, and I know that when this hits the live stream, because I know we're a little bit delayed, it's absolutely going to start popping up with questions about what the next the next book would potentially be. So I don't know if you want to tease any of that forward, or we'll leave it for as a mystery for the future.
It'll be a mystery, since I don't know if I'll ever actually write it, but
That's fair.
and it might be too, I don't know. And then I go back and forth, because I'm like, is it like a bridge too far? Like, is it a little bit too over the top? But it's something I can see happening. And just, I don't know, but we'll see. We'll see. I mean, I know, the wedding veil is coming out, and I have something I'm working on for 2023. And so it wouldn't be for a couple of years, but sure. I think that's kind of fun too, is like just to, just every few years, go back to Peachtree.
It's nice having this world that you can step back into, and there's a lot of affection for it among readers, and these women will always have something going on in their lives. There's always going to be something coming up for them.
Exactly.
Well, maybe this is a good time to talk a little bit about The Wedding Veil, which I think is coming out in the late winter, early spring. Is that right?
Yeah, it's coming out March 29th, which is crazy. I'm like, oh my gosh, I keep, it felt like it was really far away. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm going to get home, and it's going to be Christmas, and then it's going to be time for the wedding veil.
Now, are you done with all the work on the book at this point? Because this is the wonderful thing about publishing, is you're always working way in advance of the book.
I am. Well, let me say this. I've done through first pass, but oddly, we had been through this book so many zillion times. Normally on first pass, I find a lot of things. And this one I found very, very, very little. So I don't know. Sometimes they send me second pass, and sometimes they don't. I'm assuming because this one has more of a historical slant to it, they probably will send it to me, but I'm not positive. So
okay,
we'll see. So I think I'm finished, but
okay. So we assume it's set enough that we can talk about it.
Yes. We can certainly talk.
What can people expect with that? First of all, a fantastic title. The Wedding Veil is just, I imagine everything is tied around this beautiful object that I hope will be on the cover.
Oh, it is. It is. The cover is so beautiful. We went back and forth. In fact, I heard they emailed me, and they were like, advanced copies are in. There'll be one waiting for you when you get home. And so I'm like chomping at the bit to get home and like see this book. But yeah, so there is a wedding veil on the cover, and the Edith and Cornelia Vanderbilt, who were the first family that lived at Biltmore House, are what the story is centered around. And so you can see this bride, and she is standing kind of in this like overlook where you can see Biltmore in the background. So beautiful. It's a really beautiful cover. I really love it. We went back and forth a lot of times about, it was a hard cover to do because it's a historical contemporary novel. So I didn't want my contemporary readers to be like, what is this? Like, why are we, moving in this totally different direction? It's a little bit of a change, but also it is and it isn't, because it's still women's stories. It's still family. It's still the South. It's still, North Carolina even. So it's definitely a story that feels, I think, very much like everything else I've ever written. It just happens to be 120 years earlier than I normally write. But it was so much fun to write. But the story is actually about this real life wedding veil that belonged to Edith Vanderbilt's mother, and then her sisters. And then she wore it, her daughter Cornelia wore it, and then it disappeared. So I'm not only writing about these women's lives as well as a present day grandmother and granddaughter, but there's also this wedding veil at the center of the story, and this mystery about what happened to the Vanderbilt veil that's kind of at the center of the story.
Oh, fantastic. Well, we have a comment from Anissa who says, I can't wait to read The Wedding Veil. I've been stalking NetGalley every day. So I think that's a pretty good
it's up there soon, Anissa. I don't know. I'll see you tomorrow.
It's coming soon. Yes. So I think that sounds wonderful. And I always love seeing authors doing something a little bit different, a little bit out of maybe the comfort zone, and doing something a bit historical as well. So so you can join us in dual timeline historical novels.
No, it was definitely out of my comfort zone. And it was actually my agent's idea. She said, you should write, I pitched this idea about, this wedding veil and all the women who had worn it. And she said, gosh, you should find a real wedding veil that you want to write about. And I kind of like shrugged it off, because I thought, what are the chances that I'm going to find, a real historical wedding veil that I want to write about? or spend it, devote a year of my life to researching the women who had worn it. And I had been at Biltmore, and I just, all these questions about Edith Vanderbilt and how she saved this house after George's death, and all these things I'd never thought about before were just popping up for me. And I knew there was a story there. And so I just happened to, Google Edith Vanderbilt's wedding veil, and all these things popped up about this missing Vanderbilt veil. And I thought, well, maybe that's a sign, So I hope people like it. I enjoyed writing it. It was a different process than I thought, because I couldn't go to Biltmore and research. But I had a lot of help from a lot of people that I'm very indebted to. So it was a really fun process all the same.
Wonderful. I'm curious about something you mentioned, this being a Southern book, and you've obviously written a lot in the South, and this is one of your areas. I was trying to describe to somebody not very long ago that to me there's a feeling about certain books that are Southern, and it's not necessarily to do with the geography. There is something about the tone and the communities. And I'm having, not being from the South, I have a really hard time putting my finger on it. I don't know if you can do a better job of kind of encapsulating what is a Southern novel to you.
I don't know, but I think there's a subtlety to characters in a Southern novel. And I always, sometimes I'll say this, like, it'll sometimes frustrate like an editor or someone. They'll be like, well, why doesn't she just come out and say that? And like, because she's a 75-year-old Southern woman, she would never come out and say that. Like, there would be a lot of subtlety and subtext surrounding, because it wouldn't be polite for her to say, no, I don't want to do that. So right. I think there's a lot of that. I also think there's so much tradition that, in the South, for better and for worse. But I think when I say tradition, I mean, the silver that your grandmother had that she passed down to you that you still use, or, the lemonade that's served on the church lawn, because it has been every day since 1841, the first Sunday when the lemonade was on the lawn. I think there are things like that that just really kind of run through a Southern novel, but it's honestly hard for me to pinpoint, just because people will say things to me like, oh my gosh, like the way that you wrote about like X, Y, or Z, and I didn't even think about that, because it was just how I grew up. It was my life. So there was nothing, not that everything I write is my life, but you know what I mean? Like, there'll just be those little Southernisms that I just write because they're just what I know. And in fact, it was really funny because when my first book, Dear Caroline, I was super Southern, and there was this character that talked in this very Southern dialect. And like that one, I knew that was a Southern book. But Lies and Other Acts of Love, my second book, was just a story that I was writing, and I remember when the reviews started coming out and they were talking about, the Southern story, and I was like, huh, really? Because to me, I wasn't writing Southern fiction. I was just writing a book. So it's kind of funny. I mean, I'm sure you have things like that, that they just come out of you and they make their way into the story, and they aren't even really on purpose.
No, it's absolutely true. I'm this funny muddle of born and raised in the United States, but also have a British mother and obviously live in the UK now. So I don't know where I am half the time, or what my accent is, or what my vocabulary is. It's pulling from all sorts of places. And I lived in Los Angeles and New York, and I lived in Iowa. I've been sort of all over the place in a lot of different cultural spots. But I think there's certain things that creep into your writing, whether you mean for them to or not. It's just sort of in your subconscious. And fortunately for me, it comes out in British historical fiction, because that's what I've been exposed to. And that's what I love. It's what I've read for years and years, but hopefully it ends up fitting with the voice and the type of genre that you write as well.
Well, I mean, it definitely, and I think your voice comes through in your work, like no matter who you're writing about and no matter what you're writing about, there's something really special in particular about, your words and your style and your tone that, no matter who you are becoming in that story, it's still a Julia Kelly book. And I think that's a real skill and gift as a writer, to be able to embody all these different characters, but to also have your own kind of voice in that story as well. I don't know if I'm saying that well, but
no, I think that makes complete sense. And when you talk about sort of, even though it will be a little bit different than what you've written before with The Wedding Veil, there are themes and there are things that are going to feel familiar to readers. It's going to be one of your books and your voice. And there's some things they can expect, I imagine, we'll focus on family and women and all of those things.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I think that makes total sense to me. I would love to ask you a bunch of nosy questions about the writing process, if I can
Okay,
do that, if
good.
you don't mind.
Absolutely. No.
Okay, fabulous. I realize there's no normal day in the life of being an author, but what is a normal-ish day for you?
Okay, so a normal-ish day. I think it's kind of everything sort of in segments. So um, I'm usually writing a first draft of something about 3-ish months a year. And so when I'm doing that, I try really hard for that to be the first thing that I do every day. Knock out those 2,000 words, check that off my to-do list because that's kind of my most important thing of that day. Um, and then, you're always kind of moving into, you're always sort of writing one thing and editing another thing and promoting something else. So there's always a lot going on that you're juggling. So I always try to make sure that the writing is first and then, whatever I'm editing and then, working on the promotional end of things. And I will say, the waters have gotten a little muddied the last couple of years. It has really, sort of, in fact, I was talking to another author about this last week. And I don't know if you feel this way, but I think because during the pandemic, we all took on these new things and new projects and, not even necessarily writing, but just like things to fill our time because our time was different. We weren't getting ready for these big book tours and we weren't, speaking all the time and, we weren't Zooming with I guess we were Zooming with book clubs. I don't know, but just our life was very different. Yeah. And so now when the world's opening back up a little bit, it's like we have to kind of reconfigure our schedules in our lives because it's like, oh wait, we have this big thing that we need to now like fit back into life. So, I think it's always a juggling act when it's like you have all these little babies that you're working on at the same time and you need to make sure that they're each like cleaned and fed and changed. And,
it's true. It's true. And none of them can quite fend for themselves yet. They have to be helped along.
Yeah. So I feel like, I really feel like my day is divided into like, okay, this is the part I'm controlling. And then this is the part where everything's coming at me. Do you ever feel like that? It's like, I'm dealing with the things that are coming at me now, like at the second part of the day. So
yes, exactly. Yeah. For me, it's when the United States wakes up. So I know I have sort of all the morning. It's very clear and very easy. And the only person procrastinating is me. Nobody else can get blamed for that.
Right. But I know you love that.
Yeah, and I do love it. On the days where it's really working well, I love it. And then sure enough, the inbox starts pinging and you think to yourself, okay, they woke up. Now it starts.
I mean, I cannot imagine what that must be like wow. And I'm sure there are a lot of times when, it's 4:00 here and it's, 4:37 here and it's 10 o'clock or 9:37 there for you, right?
It is. Yeah, it is. I was explaining to my partner that book events are going to happen in the evening for me because of obviously the United States and Canada. And he said, I'll cook dinner. Don't worry about it. You just do your thing. So,
well, it's true. It's true.
Yeah, exactly. So, it's you do what you need to do and sort of make things happen. And obviously you're on tour at the moment. So you're coming to us from a hotel room, as you said.
Lovely background here. Sorry. I was like trying to finagle around and there just was not a lot to do. So
if it was my hotel room, there would be a suitcase on the bed and, the pillows would already be off. And
fortunately I just walked in the door. So it's good timing.
Well, we had a question about what it's like being back on tour and what it's like being back on tour with your wonderful friends from Friends in Fiction.
Oh man, it's been so great. It's been so great to be back on tour and just to get to see people. And, we write these books and it's very solitary, like you said, and we spend all this time like in our own little world and creating another world. And so then sometimes you forget that there are people, on the other side of this that hopefully are going to, get some joy from what you're doing. And just to be reminded of that, to see people's faces and get to sign their books. And it's a real joy. And gosh, so the past, let's see. So I've been on the road since like not last Monday, but the Monday before.
Ooh, long time.
Yeah. So I was by myself for a couple of days, but then it was Patty Callahan's launch of Once Upon a Wardrobe. So I was in Savannah with her and Mary Kay Andrews. And then we went to Beaufort, South Carolina, and that was really fun. And then I did a couple, we all sort of split up and did a few solo events at different places in Florida, but then Mary Kay and Patty and Kristen Harmel and I were all together for, like 3 or 4 days. We did a bunch of events that just wow, like they really blew my mind.
The
It was
photos that I saw were really pretty
it was
incredible.
it was so great. And I think, part of it is we started this thing called Friends in Fiction during the pandemic for people who haven't heard of it. It's a Facebook group. It's much like this. We interview authors and um, talk about story and all that kind of thing. But we had done an event together live in my town of Beaufort. We actually did like 3 or 4 in a row, which was so great. And we got to see Friends in Fiction readers kind of at the beginning of the summer, which was really wonderful. And then, everything kind of got a little crazy again. So we hadn't really done anything. So to get to come out together on the road and get to meet readers and gosh, it was so great. It really was. We had such a good time. And something about being with your friends just makes it feel a little bit, it's just more fun. It's more relaxed. It's a little less stressful. And so we just had a really big time and it was great. And so now I'm back by myself, but I was with Kristen yesterday. I was in Orlando, which is where she lives. And we did an event together at a bookstore in the morning. And then we got to do Friends in Fiction together last night. And I did a little speaking engagement in between. So I just have a few more events. I'm in the Mount Pleasant, South Carolina, just in case anyone's watching and they want to come.
Yeah, well, people are asking where you're coming up next. So yeah, perfect.
So I'm going to be at the Mount Pleasant, South Carolina Barnes and Noble at 6:00 tonight. And then tomorrow I have a luncheon with Litchfield Books and I'll be at the Silver Coast Winery in Ocean Isle, North Carolina tomorrow night with Pelican Bookshop. And then Saturday, I have a morning event at DG's Gifts and Books in Morehead City, North Carolina, and then an afternoon event at Beaufort Linen Company in Beaufort, North Carolina. And then next week, anyway, I can go look at my tour schedule, but next week I'll be in like some different places in North and South Carolina. And then I'm kind of wrapping it up. So there's like one more week. I'm actually ending in Palmetto Bluff with Patty and Mary Kay for a cookie decorating event, which will be really fun, except I'm terribly uncreative. So my cookies are going to look bad.
You know what? It's going to be fine. Everybody will just be very happy to see you.
I mean,
and you'll be at the end.
People are going to be like, that can't be real, that her cookies are that bad, but it's real.
Sometimes writers are not meant to be artists. We're meant to be visual artists, I should say. We're meant to be writers. So that's where the talent went.
Thank you, Julia.
I love it. Well, so if people want to check your tour schedule, where should they go to check that?
So my website is KristyWoodsonHarvey.com, and there's a tab on there that says tour dates. And there's been like a little bit of movement in my schedule next week. So we actually added a couple new dates.
Wonderful.
Next week. So go check it out.
Wonderful. Well, I think people are very interested because we got some comments here and lots of people excited about you being out on tour again. We do have one question, which I think is very insightful, which is from Karen. Are you exhausted on tour or energized or both?
It's both. So when I am in an event and I like walk in a room and I see those people and I get to be on stage and I get to have that microphone in my hand, I am like, it's like the greatest thing in the world. And like talking to people and, it's great. I love it. It's so energizing. It is so exciting. But then there's also, we spend most of our day either at events or, kind of driving to and from or getting on an airplane or whatever it is that we're doing. And there's still a lot of work to be done, especially with The Wedding Veil coming out in March. Like life isn't just stopping. So it's been, I'm working on some interesting projects right now that just happen to coincide with this book tour. So it's been a little more exhausting, I think, than the average book tour because I've just had a lot of work to do. Normally it's like, okay, I'm finished for the day. I'm going to go like eat and relax and like put my feet up and like recharge for the morning. But I haven't had as much of that this time. So, but I really actually I feel pretty good. There was only one day that I was like, oh my gosh, I don't think I'm going to make it. And then otherwise, I think that's what happens though, about halfway through, you like hit a wall and then you kind of just like rebound. But there's definitely it's definitely, day after day after day after day. So there's no like weekend off or anything. So that can be a little bit tiring, but it's also just so fun. And gosh, like I was sitting somewhere yesterday and I was like looking out at these people and I was like, God, I'm so grateful like that I get to do this and I get to be here and that these people are reading my books and that they would come here to hear me. Like what a gift that is. And so I'm like very cognizant of that. And I think there's no time that I am as in the moment as when I'm at a book event. Like I am in that moment. Like I am there for it. I'm not thinking about anything else. And there's something really cool about that.
It's great, isn't it? And I think especially one of the tricky things about being an author is sometimes everything feels a little bit like it's in a vacuum. You
Yeah.
talk to sort of the team at your publisher, and you talk to your friends and family, and you talk to
Yep.
your agent, and you don't necessarily, even with social media, you don't necessarily get the kind of feedback that you would in person or at a live event, virtually.
So true.
Obviously, I'm a big fan of the virtual events, as I know you are as well with
Yes, I love
fiction.
virtual events. Yes.
It's just something different about getting that sort of real-time feedback from people, and hearing what people have to say. And often it's, lovely and supportive. And sometimes there are questions where you just think, I never thought of that before. That's
I
so
know.
interesting.
I know. Well, and sometimes I love it. Like I love doing like a couple things before the book comes out because I'm like, oh, I didn't even think of that. I should say that in my talk or whatever it may be.
Yeah, definitely kind of polish the talk and
Yeah,
polish
you're
the
like,
pitch as you
oh,
go.
that was a great thought. Like, yeah, I meant to do that.
Definitely. Definitely. But I'm also really glad that you mentioned the fact that, as you say, life goes on even when you are going from event to event
Yeah.
and you're on book tour. There are other things that you're doing behind the scenes and things that you have to juggle. I think it's one of those tricky things that a lot of people don't talk about in the publishing world until you become an author, and then you realize there's writing the book and editing the book and the things that you can kind of predict, and then there's everything that goes on around it, because it is a business and it's also a passion at the same time.
It is. That's so true. It's so well put. And I think sometimes even our publishing teams don't really understand what it's like, to be out on the road for a long stretch of time. And but it really is. I mean, it's great. And it's so funny because I say it's almost like having a baby, sort of like you're it can be really long and like some days are really grueling, but it's like when you get home, you kind of don't remember it. It's very bizarre. Like you remember feeling so great, but like I got here and somebody was like, so where are you coming in from? And I was like, I
I
I don't
drove it, but
I
I
don't
don't know.
know. And I was like, somewhere in Florida. I remember passing the Florida Georgia line and thinking about the band and then getting to South Carolina. I was like, Orlando, I was in Orlando, but it just all started to run together. It's like, it's so funny. It's so funny, but it's great. I mean, it's very unique and it's very awesome.
Definitely. What's the first thing you're going to do when you get home?
Oh my gosh, I cannot wait to like hug my boys, and I'm so excited to see them. And then my boys, I mean my husband and my son. I just have one son. And then do lots of laundry. I'm so
Lots of
excited
laundry,
to
I
do
can
my laundry.
understand.
I have so much laundry to do. I'm like, and I've kind of got to turn it around quickly because I'm going to be home for 2 days because I wanted to be home for Halloween, and then back on the road. So I'm like laundry, 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 pack, 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 hug, 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 trick or treat.
Yeah. It's like a pit stop, but with a lot of
Yeah.
family in the middle of it.
Exactly. And like make sure that there's like milk and things that I'm like, are they doing this while I'm gone?
Yeah. Yeah. Is
Milk, teeth
everybody
look
okay?
clean. His teeth are probably clean because my husband's a dentist, so he probably is making him brush his teeth at least.
There you go. There you go. I put money on that.
Yeah. Showering, I don't know. That's 50-50. No.
Yeah, they'll be
They do
fine.
pretty well while I'm gone.
Yeah, they'll be great. They'll be great.
Yeah.
Have you had any time to read while you've been on the road, or has it really just been sort of back to back?
I really haven't. Yeah, I've like most nights I've kind of gotten finished around like 9 or 10, and then most mornings for some reason 5:51. 5:51 has been my alarm clock most of the mornings because I usually have somewhere that I'm trying to get to in the morning. And,
Oh, sure.
at least a couple of events during the day, and then I'm like at least 3 days behind on emails. So I'm like, maybe tonight I'll do that. But yeah, so if I owe you an email, I'm sorry. It's not because I'm avoiding you.
I feel like book tour and writing the book are two very valid excuses for being behind.
Yeah, thank you. But no, so I am actually not reading. And the funny thing is that normally, I'm listening to a lot of things when I'm on the road, but I feel like these past 2 weeks, there have been so many crazy things going on. I've been like talking or like working with someone like on the phone the whole time I've been in the car. So I'm like, I haven't even listened to a lot of audiobooks, which is kind of weird because normally I'm like, oh, I'm going to catch up on all my great audiobooks. And, but I'm really excited to get home and, dive into things, and especially all these great Christmas books I see coming out. I'm like, yes. So I definitely, I mean, I've read The Santa Suit by Mary Kay, which
I was going to say,
amazing. And of course I've read Once Upon a Wardrobe by Patty Callahan, which is absolutely beautiful and amazing also. So those were the last two things that I read before I left on tour. But it's only been a couple of weeks. So, maybe one, but it's so funny because I I think it was last night. I got in bed and I was like, I'm gonna try to like turn the TV on. I turned the TV on. It was like 3 minutes, and I was like, okay, this isn't gonna work. So I don't think reading is really gonna be in the cards for the next couple of weeks. But as soon as I get home, I'll have a lot to dive into. So I'm excited.
You just need to unwind a little bit and kind of stop being on the go for a moment. Maybe that will help.
And I can't wait to read your new book. I'm hoping that it'll be in my mailbox very soon.
I think it should be. It should be.
Good. It's so funny too, because I can see, I get the UPS notifications and it'll say like, you have a package from Simon and Schuster, or you have a package from Random House. And I'm like, I wonder what book it is. I'm so excited. I can't wait.
It is fun. It is really fun. Well, and of course you read so much for Friends in Fiction, I would imagine as well.
Yes. So much for Friends in Fiction. And actually, and that's been sort of great. Well, this was funny because we had Richard Paul Evans on the show last night, and I hadn't read his new book because it's like it's a victim of the printing delays. So I normally would have read his book, but we didn't have copies of it. And so it was sort of my launch day celebration too. So obviously I had read Christmas in Peachtree. And then next week we have Zibby Owens on with her book, Moms Don't Have Time to Have Kids. And I wrote an essay for that. So I'm like, okay, well, at least I definitely know what that part's about.
Yes, this is good. You scheduled those at the right time, I think.
Yeah, I definitely did. So I've done it, I've read a few of the essays in the book, but I'm sure it's, I'm hoping it's waiting for me on my doorstep when I get home, and I'll definitely read it, before next Wednesday. So anyway, but yeah, we do a lot of reading, and I think it puts me on my comfort zone too, a little bit. Like I've read a lot of things that aren't necessarily my normal genre, things I wouldn't have picked up. And I think you learn a lot that way about your writing and the world and everything.
I think so too. I think it's one of the favorite pieces of writing advice that I've heard, thrown around, and a lot of writing advice gets said to aspiring writers and even writers who are published. And I like the idea of, you should continue to be a reader and continue to read things widely across genres. And who knows what's going to be an idea that turns into a story.
So true. It's so true. That's such a good point. Yeah.
So I know you mentioned a couple of books, Mary Kay Andrews, The Santa Suit, right?
Yes.
And then Once Upon a Wardrobe, which is sitting right over there, and I need to read it. But since you said that you've been not doing as much reading on tour, maybe there are a couple of Friends in Fiction episodes that you might recommend to people if they want to. I know there are a lot of Friends in Fiction watchers here, but people who haven't seen it yet.
Oh, that's so great. Okay, so we had Wiley Cash on a couple of weeks ago. And this is funny that I'm like, we almost always have female authors, but for some reason, the last few weeks, we've had a lot of male authors like in a row. But two that really stand out. The Kwame Alexander episode was so great, and the Wiley Cash episode was so great. They're both, Wiley teaches a lot of writing. So I think if you're a writer, you probably would get so much. I got so much out of his episode because I was like, wow, these are really good tips. And then Kwame, he's a poet. So like just the way that he says things in the world, and he changed his glasses like 11 times or something. So that was pretty cool too. Just like go for the glasses changes.
I like it.
Yeah, so that was really interesting. But gosh, we've had so many great guests, including one fabulous Joy, who you must go back and watch that episode because
it was so much fun. And I'm so sorry that we missed each other on that episode.
I know, and I can't remember why. I think I was on book tour actually.
I think you probably were.
Yeah, I think it was it like last April?
I
don't know, but
I think that's around. What is time anymore?
It was. I was at a book club in Charlotte. That's exactly what it was.
You have a good memory.
I was on my book. No, because I remember I was really upset that I missed it. And I was on book tour for Under the Southern Sky. And when you guys filmed, I was at a book club in Charlotte. And because they were like, don't worry about it. And I was like, well, maybe I could reschedule the book club. And they were like, no, you're on tour. Don't reschedule the book club. Julia will come back. She will forgive you. So I'll be really glad for you to come back on the show. So
I would love to. It's so much fun. It's such a lovely, warm environment, and everybody is just enthusiastic, and it's just great.
It's really fun. But yeah, gosh, we've had so many great guests. Lisa Scottolini episode, that was one of my favorites. She was so just great and interesting. And I have to tell you, it's kind of funny because the first episode we did with Kristen Hanna, I guess it was the first time we had a guest. I think she was our first guest. It was like over a year ago.
Right.
And I was really debating like whether I was going to write The Wedding Veil and like really dive into this thing, or like, I think I'd started, but I was like, am I doing the right thing? And her piece of advice was that every few books you need to do something that terrifies you. And I was like, okay, well, check, this terrifies me. So if Kristen says, I guess I'll do it.
I like that. I'm writing that book right now. So
yeah, exactly. So it's just so interesting. Like somebody can say something that kind of just changes your perspective on what you're writing or what you're working on. And we always have writing tips on the show, and we laugh that like they're for the audience, but really they're for us.
I mean, that's what this basically is I get to be really nosy, ask a bunch of questions, and then try to figure out what have you told me that I could potentially take into my writing career.
Well, you do it very well. You do it very well. I don't think there's anything that I can tell you, Julia. So
oh no, I'm sure that's not true. Well, this has been absolutely wonderful. I feel like I could just talk to you for ages and ages, but I know you probably are absolutely exhausted and would like a little bit of a moment to rest before you've got another book club tonight.
Gotta go do my hair and
do the whole thing.
Get ready for Barnes and Noble. So yeah,
oh, that'll be
actually
fantastic.
It's pouring rain outside, so I was like, well, what better place to spend a rainy night than a bookstore?
It's not bad. It's not bad. There are worse places in this world. So, but before you go, perhaps you could tell us where we can find the book and also where people can follow you and perhaps Friends in Fiction as well.
Yes, absolutely. You can pick up Christmas in Peachtree Bluff, hopefully at your local independent bookstore. Warwick's in California was our bookseller of the week this week for my launch. And so it's a great bookshop. So, and I know they have in stock, if you want a signed copy, Oxford Exchange has about 1 million in Tampa. They had assigned so many books. I was like, oh my goodness, you guys, this is amazing. So I know there's signed copies at Oxford Exchange in Tampa. I know there's signed copies at the Book Loft in Amelia Island because I left them there. Writer's Block in Orlando. And then of course, the usual suspects, you can get it at Barnes & Noble, Amazon, Target, Books A Million, basically anywhere books are sold. So yeah, and then you can find me at KristyWoodsonHarvey.com. If you're an Instagram person, I am at Kristy W. Harvey on Instagram. You can follow along on my tour with me. It's been really fun. And then on Facebook, Kristy Woodson Harvey, and Friends in Fiction. You can find us on Facebook, Friends and Fiction on Facebook or YouTube. If you just type Friends and Fiction in the search bar, all of our past episodes will come up. We also have an amazing podcast. So if you're a podcast person, just type Friends and Fiction and it just pops right up, and you can get all our past episodes on the podcast, as well as we have a special episode every Friday in addition to our Wednesday night show to catch up on things that you might have missed, new interviews with amazing authors and really cool topics, and it's really great. So don't miss it.
Oh, you guys will absolutely love it if you haven't checked those things out yet. Thank you again so much for coming and making the time to join us. And again, I love chatting with you. So this has been so much fun.
I love chatting with you. Thank you so much for having me. I really, really appreciate it. And thanks for reading the book and for all that you do to help support authors in their books. I really appreciate it. And I can't wait to see you again when your new book comes out.
Yeah, thank you so much. Well, it's my pleasure. And I'll see you guys all again next week. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Julia.